45-23. I'm sorry, what was that? 45-23. Let's go, baby. Holy crap. Nobody could have anticipated that. Yes, there were those who said that Michigan was going to win, but nobody had it by a margin that big. Way to go, Wolverines. Back-to-back wins against Ohio State. First time since 99 and 2000 in Columbus. What a statement win. We talked about this as being a game for an opportunity to make legends out of players, and we had several step up. J.J. McCarthy, 263 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown.
Legend. Wait for it. And I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second half of that word is dairy.
Donovan Edwards, 216 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Audience, say it with me. Legendary.
Cornelius Johnson, 4 receptions for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Legendary.
And the defense had several players come up big, but I think the hero of the defense was really Mike Sanders, and we'll get to that here later in the video. So I know that I could go on and I could talk about these stats and these players and these things, but really what everybody wants to see is more highlight videos. So I'm actually going to do something completely different for this one, and I'm going to go ahead and go through the game and some of the footage and just talk about how things progressed for the game. This is just walking through it and reliving it because it was such an amazing game and a fantastic performance. Let's go. So the game started out with Ohio State receiving the ball, and honestly, they just marched down the field and got the touchdown. But really, what was great about this drive was the fact that Michigan forced them to go slow. They didn't allow any huge plays, and they didn't make it fast for Ohio State. That was a good sign to get things started. Now, what's interesting is how Ohio State capped off this drive by getting a touchdown pass to Egbuka, and that was actually the player being defended by Sanders, and he becomes a key player in this game with his performance. Michigan then receives the ball, and even though it goes very slow and rather sluggish to start with, they do convert on big third downs and then have a big pass conversion to Ronnie Bell to set things up for a field goal to get points on the board right away. This is another huge success because you don't want to let Ohio State get too big of a lead. So the fact that Michigan was able to just even put up points was a big step forward in staying in this game. Now, for the second offensive drive for Ohio State, they once again marched down the field. But this time, Michigan is able to stop them in the red zone and force them to kick a field goal. This is another big step in progress on not letting OSU score touchdowns on every single one of their drives. So even though Ohio State is still scoring points, Michigan's defense is still steadily making progress through this game. Now, things for Michigan start to get a little bit worrisome as they're not able to convert and get down the field to score again. Fortunately, though, the next possession for Ohio State, the defense steps up big and stops them and doesn't allow them to score. And this goes back and forth for a couple drives where Michigan and Ohio State have to punt back and forth. Just when things start to look gloomy for Michigan and they're on a 3rd and long, they get a big conversion. JJ got the pass on target, Cornelius Johnson caught the ball, and he was able to stay on his feet. Things that we haven't seen for weeks from the Michigan offense, and it came up huge in Columbus. You begin to feel like Michigan is gaining momentum, especially when the defense comes out and holds Ohio State to another field goal. But wait, there's more. Now, everybody was talking about how great Stroud was and you can't give him time in the pocket, but nobody talked about watch out for JJ when he's got time to pass. And that's exactly what happened on this next drive, as there was great pass protection and he was able to find Johnson again for a huge touchdown. Now, what happens next, even though that Michigan has all the momentum, Ohio State does what Ohio State is good at, and they march right down the field with some big plays. And this is actually what you were afraid of that Ohio State was going to be able to do. But honestly, since this is the first time they were able to do it and just go down the field in a matter of what seemed like seconds, it was great to see that Michigan wasn't letting them do that all day. Michigan was able to keep their composure, and they didn't allow this to break them. And Harrison Jr. was Ohio State's biggest offensive weapon coming into the game. And so for him to be held to this one touchdown in the first half was huge for the Michigan defense. The teams wound up going into halftime with Ohio State leading by 3 points. And honestly, this is exactly what I said could potentially happen, Michigan being down at the halftime. But guess what? There's always a second half, and Michigan is great at adjustments. So enter the second half. Michigan starts with the football and marches right down the field, slowly, steadily, and strategically. So Michigan leaning heavy on the passing game, JJ knowing that his Heisman running back is sitting on the bench because he's not 100%, and even Edwards in the game isn't 100%. He says, guys, don't worry about it. Put it on my shoulders. I'll carry us for the first down. And that is what he did. That is the Michigan quarterback right there laying it out to get the win. And then they have a play go wide open for a Michigan tight end, Loveland, for the touchdown. If you're a Michigan fan, then you know you love the tight ends, and they showed up in Columbus, and what a great play for Loveland in this game. So Ohio State gets their first drive of the second half, and they wind up having to punt it away. Great job by the Michigan defense. And honestly, while sitting and watching the game, everyone's wishing for Michigan to be able to extend their lead because you know it's just a matter of time before Ohio State is able to drive down the field. That did not happen in their second offensive drive of the second half. But the Michigan defense doing what it does all year long, even though Ohio State gets the ball right back, they come up with another stop against the Buckeyes. Now, the third quarter does not end without any more excitement because Michigan begins to drive down the field, and then in a 3rd and short, they pulled this play out, and even though it could have potentially gone for a touchdown, it still worked fantastic. Michigan marches down into the red zone inside the 5-yard line, and things look a little sketchy as OSU is coming up with some stops. But then J.J. McCarthy once again puts this game on his back and takes the ball in himself to the end zone. OSU gets the ball back, chance to put some more points up on the board and close the gap between them and Michigan. But the defense comes up huge. McGregor had himself a day and made big plays. So Michigan gets the ball back on offense and they begin to march down the field. This is where things got a little bit interesting. Michigan elects to go for a 57-yard field goal. At the time, I did not feel great about this because I knew Michigan had all the momentum. And so a missed field goal could really give Ohio State some life. And also, if it's a miss, Ohio State gets really good field positioning. So really, the negatives heavily outweighed the positive of potentially 3 points. They decided to kick for it, and it was short and wide left. Ohio State took over. Then Ohio State begins to look like the team in the first half, and they march right down the field again. But what they didn't account for was running into Mike Sanders still. And even though they scored a touchdown on him in the first half, he was saying, "Not this time, Buckeyes." This play was huge because if OSU got a touchdown, that gap would have been so much smaller for them to come back and potentially tie Michigan. And he forced them into a field goal, which squandered some of their hope. So the scoreboard is 31-23. It's still an 8-point game, one possession, and Ohio State could tie Michigan. With over 7 minutes left in the game, this is far from over. And so up to this point, the Michigan offense has been carried by the passing game. Ohio State is gambling, and it was like they were betting that Michigan was just going to try to run down the clock as much as possible. They had no protection in the backfield, and they put everybody up on the line. And that resulted in this. So that happened so fast that Ohio State still had plenty of time to potentially come back and tie the game. And this was their ensuing offensive possession. Marching down the field, getting into scoring position, and then the Michigan defense comes up big again. So up until this point, there was still a small window for Ohio State. But once Upshaw got that interception, that was it. I jumped up and I knew the game was over. So then at this point, with the Michigan offense having the ball again, basically play mistake free and the game is yours. But instead of just running out the clock, they do this. Goodbye, Edwards. Hello, Indianapolis.
Huge touchdowns. Jimmy hooks the tackle, and at that point, boom, it's gone.
So back-to-back quick scoring possessions by Michigan, extending that huge lead. Ohio State still does get the ball back on offense, but not enough time to do that much damage. But then they went ahead and wound up throwing it away. And with that, your 2022 Michigan Wolverines beat Ohio State back-to-back for the first time since 1999 and 2000, going into Columbus and dominating them. That's it. What more needs to be said? You can just watch the tape again and enjoy it for all it's worth, because that will never get old. Amazing job, Wolverines. Great job, coaching staff. They did it 2 years in a row with such a great game plan. The Michigan Wolverines are headed back to Indianapolis again, back-to-back years, to face off against Purdue this coming Saturday night. So we've got another preview episode coming out here later this week. Enough said. We'll catch you next time. Go Blue.